Hello, Capricorn, and welcome. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of January 2023. So, for about the next 4 weeks, moving into the beginning of February. This reading will be for Capricorn Sun, Moon, and Rising. So, by all means, if you know your three major placements, you can feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that may apply, as each one may resonate for you differently. And as always, before we get started, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature, so they're not necessarily going to resonate for everyone. Not every detail that comes through will make sense for you. So I highly do encourage you to take anything and everything that does resonate, however that makes sense to your specific situation, whatever that inspires in you, and simply leave the rest. So Capricorn, Happy New Year, Happy 2023, Happy Capricorn season, so happy birthday, whether you've already celebrated or your birthday is yet to come. I hope you're having a wonderful time. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. I'm sorry I've been a little bit MIA the last few months. Just had some kind of major stuff going on, and yeah, I kind of had to pull back my energy a little bit, focus on taking care of myself, my family, take some time to recuperate. I wasn't really in the right space to do energy work. And so now I am back. I'm super excited to be here. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. And thank you so much for joining me. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to take a look at January and see what might be in store for you. I'm going to do my best to keep the reading more on the brief side if possible. So I will start off by saying, when I was preparing for your reading, the energy that I was picking up on, the first thing that came through was like Hot Mess Express. Because as I was shuffling the cards to get them cleansed, they just kind of flew everywhere, and I was immediately overwhelmed. And so you might be feeling that way. Maybe that's something that you struggle with. You could be particularly sensitive to your surroundings, anything that's happening, like movement, noises, mess, like overstimulation, when things go wrong. That might be something that kind of weighs on you or triggers you. And then the next thing that I kind of sensed was like, I kept fluctuating between not really knowing what I was doing, or like losing focus or forgetting, and then having like laser focus, knowing exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I need to do, making a detailed plan. And then I would kind of be like, wait, what was I doing? And then I would kind of forget again. And so I was like very quickly fluctuating between being laser focused and knowing exactly what I needed to do, and then kind of being at a bit of a loss and forgetting. So that might be something that you're also struggling with. That might be the energy of this month, perhaps if you've got a lot going on. So it could be leaving you feeling a little bit unstable, or experiencing a little bit of instability as a result, if you are experiencing something like that. So I'm just putting that out there. So we're going to get into your oracle cards, which is going to be your theme for this month. We'll pull a few tarot cards, and I'll share with you the channeled messages that I took some time to connect with before I pulled out any of these cards. So your theme for this month, your message is flexible. So you get a good look at the card. So it's kind of like a yoga pose. She's balancing on top of an egg, or they're balancing on top of an egg. And I think that's a really interesting theme for you guys to have this month, because we've got the number 19. So 1 and 9 adds to 10. 10 is a number of endings. So you might be going through a lot right now. You might either have a lot of change happening, or maybe changes on the horizon, perhaps endings, and then as a result, beginnings is something that's kind of on the horizon for you. I think also, like, as we move into the calendar new year, a lot of times we're focused on what's happened in the past year, kind of taking time to reconcile those experiences, and then think about how we want to do things moving forward, what we need to let go of. So this is very much an energy of being able to kind of adapt to your surroundings, being able to flow with things. Rigidity might be a challenge for you this month, the need to be rigid, to have things kind of planned and controlled. And that might actually kind of go hand in hand with this idea of being like really focused and then kind of forgetting. So that might also be giving you the opportunity to let go of a little bit of control and structure, let go of the need for things to be rigid, to know what's going to happen or how it's going to happen, or to see every step of your plan, executed exactly as you had hoped. This is a time to be open-minded, be willing to learn, to, even if you're not in a position necessarily to adapt new points of view or new levels of understanding, at least being open to them, and seeing if there's something that might be helpful to you, because you never know, right? So when we're rigid and we have certain expectations in a way that we expect things to go, we, a lot of the time, like, end up putting blinders on ourselves. So we're so focused on how we see things or how we want things to be, that we can close ourselves off to a huge amount of opportunity, a huge amount of knowledge, potentially even like opportunities for, a new career, a new partner, a new romance, or any kind of opportunity that might be something other than what we could imagine for ourselves, right? So it's basically saying, like, yeah, there can be a certain amount of stability and safeness and feeling, kind of taking that rigid approach, but a lot of times it can just kind of make things more difficult and set us back. So if that is something that you struggle with, this month will be a really good time for you to just try to, I know it's easier said than done, try to release that. Try to see what is open to you, like even just being open-minded in conversations, with friends and family or with coworkers, being open-minded about new takes on old concepts, maybe new opportunities. So you don't want to shoot anything down immediately, right? You don't want to kind of put your walls up or paint things with your own expectations, or try to fit things into your own box this month, because you may very well miss out on some kind of valuable opportunity, whether that's the ability to connect with new insight, new wisdom, new skills, maybe opportunities for money, opportunities for love. So it's basically saying, like, you are going to be able to let go. It might feel a little bit scary, but that's also kind of exciting to consider what you might come into contact with and how things might unfold. And when it comes to relationships and interactions with other people, that can be across the board in terms of family, friends, coworkers, that kind of stuff, or romantic relationships. Compromise and trying to find a mutually beneficial solution is going to be your best friend, because the more that you kind of push for things to be your way, or to kind of fit your expectations, or to stay within your comfort zone or your little box, you might actually just be creating some conflict for yourself. You might kind of start a war, not necessarily like something really negative or really intense, but you're going to end up having you might experience more opposition than normal, clinging to that rigidity. So if that need to be kind of rigid and have things neat and tidy and controlled is being tested that month or this month, that's just to kind of open your eyes to the fact that, there are different ways of doing things. And the more that you're open to kind of assessing that and at least acknowledging it, you may very well find that you come across someone or something unexpected. And it's kind of like, there is also a part in terms of romantic relationships. It's like, if you're so busy clinging to your idea, like a very fixed idea of what your ideal significant other would be, what they would look like, what they would do for a living, how they would act, what their hobbies are, what their family structure looks like. If you're so busy focusing on a very rigid and detailed idea of what that person looks like, you might be shooting down individuals that are very well, could very well be a perfect match or a really healthy, beneficial match for you. So it's like, you don't want to judge a book by its cover. You don't want to make assumptions, because you might be surprised. And it would only be like, in terms of being a little bit more flexible in terms of what you're looking for or what you would normally accept, that you can get to know someone on a deeper level and see, maybe they do have something to offer. And even if they're not going to be, a romantic partner, they might become a really good friend, or they might be able to connect you with a new way of being or a way of seeing the world that's really going to improve other areas of your life. So it's kind of like, you can't discount people or cut them out. simply because they don't kind of fit the mold. Now is the month to be a little bit adventurous and a little bit flexible, to meet people halfway and trust that they're going to be doing the same with you. So I think that's a really positive message overall. So we're going to get just a little bit of insight on what your challenge for this month might be. And then what advice you're being given in relation to this challenge. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so your challenge this month, and this might be, it might come up as a really obvious challenge, something that's in your external environment that's continuously coming up, or it might be something more internal based on your own predispositions, your past experiences, your feelings, your way of kind of relating to the world. So your challenge is showing up as the Ten of Pentacles. And your advice for kind of moving through this challenge, however it shows up, is the Two of Swords. And then we have the Emperor at the bottom of the deck. Now, I find it really interesting that the Emperor is coming up at the bottom of the deck, and we're talking about rigidity and control, because the Emperor tends to be a very focused, very driven, very self-assured individual who kind of like makes things happen, right? So this is really like a lot of times associated with that powerful visionary energy, which a lot of time ends up being kind of controlling, being kind of rigid, because it's so focused on the end goal and what can and will be possible that it's like everything needs to happen, right? Everyone needs to have a purpose. Everyone's got to have, you know, their responsibilities. They have to execute in such a way, and it all needs to come together for everything to work, which is a really wonderful skill to have, right? But this is coming up in the past energy that's influencing this current struggle. And so I would take that energy with your kind of focus or theme being flexibility. Is you might have been in this energy, and the Emperor, usually it has something to, like, it has a lot to do with our kind of status. So you could be like at work, you could be in a managerial position. You might have a lot of sway or a lot of responsibility. You might have people working under you, whether formally or informally. It could just be the way that you're showing up in your family environment or in your friendships as somebody who's kind of in a leadership role and who has to kind of like rally the troops and get everyone focused on doing the work that needs to be done, making things happen, like, you know, taking strategic action to see things come to fruition, because this is also a very creative energy. So this might be an energy that you have been in the past, or perhaps you needed to be in, just given your current circumstances, or perhaps like your position at work, or whatever the case may be. And this is kind of, in a way, influencing this challenge for you this month. And because the challenge is showing up as the Ten of Pentacles, which is kind of like the happily ever after, like stable family card. So this is all about material abundance. It's about, you know, the career, having that, you know, ideal number in your bank account, you know, that family home. If you are if you're somebody who's interested in or who is already married, has a spouse, kids, it's kind of like, this is like the be all end all in terms of material abundance and stability. And so that would be however that connects to you, whatever you have been most focused on, particularly if there's an aspect of that or multiple aspects of that that are connected that you feel have been eluding you. So it could be the partner, it could be the family, it could be the house, it could be, you know, having enough material resources to be able to move forward in your relationship, or bring in the right partner, or be ready to have kids, or whatever the case may be. So that will resonate for you guys differently. But I would say this is definitely related to the thing that feels the most elusive or the most challenging. And it could be that the reason it's showing up as a challenge for you this month is because it is connected to this kind of controlling, rigid energy of wanting to get things done, wanting to make things happen, or having a very specific idea of what the end goal is and what you need to do to get there, or maybe if it's relationship wise, what the person that you're going to do that with is going to be like, or, how your kids should be acting or what your house should look like. So if it's been a little bit blocked or a little bit elusive or challenging for you in some way, it could very well just be related to this idea that it could have to do with your expectations, a need to control, a kind of level of rigidity that could have to do with emotional openness. Like there might be there's something there that's blocking you, that's causing you to be maybe a little bit more rigid and a little bit more controlling, not necessarily controlling in a bad way, but not wanting to settle, not wanting to give in to something that isn't right, which is completely the right thing to do. But it's like finding the balance between standing your ground and being firmly rooted in who you are, but also being flexible enough to kind of flow and to move with the situation that comes up. So the other thing with this flexible card is that it actually relates you to like a tree. So it's saying a tree can stand tall and be firmly planted and rooted, but it can still, move with the wind, right? It can still be bent, right, by external circumstances without completely breaking. And so even if everything else is torn down around it, it can still stand tall. So it's basically saying like it's really important for you to have, a sense of self, some kind of stability, something that you're building on, like a knowledge of who you are and what's most important to you, that is relatively unchanging, that's your kind of standard. But then to be moved by life experiences, to be open to experiencing new things, even if they're not like the easiest and most enjoyable things, because sometimes we have to work through discomfort and things that kind of scare us a little bit. Sometimes we have to step out into the unknown to maybe connect with new opportunities. So you might have some fear about your ability to maintain your stability or maintain your identity, or remain focused on the things that are important to you, but also to be compromising to the other people around you, to be accepting of different approaches, people who come from different backgrounds, different family structures. So yeah, it could just be like not counting people out, not counting opportunities out, just based on your kind of unique perspective, and knowing that you can strike a balance between, maintaining what's right for you and who you are at your core, but also being open to accept other people and to kind of adjust and compromise, right? Because especially if this is related to a relationship or a family structure, there's going to be give and take. Compromise is kind of like the key. Compromise and communication is the key to making anything work. And even if this is just strictly materially and it doesn't have to do with a relationship or a family life or like a desire for this kind of happily ever after energy, it could be that in terms of connecting with more wealth, with more abundance, you might need to play the game a little bit, right? Like you might need to give in a little bit. You might need to, you get what you give. So it's kind of like, even if it's in a work environment, right? If you're focused on what you need to move forward or what you're hoping to accomplish for yourself, a lot of times it's difficult for us to do things entirely by ourselves. And so sometimes we need to collaborate with individuals. And that collaboration can be beneficial for both people. And it's important to make sure that we are participating in mutually beneficial interactions. And that the more flexible that we can be to kind of being accepting, being open-minded, being open to learning new things or doing things in a different way, that flexibility kind of seeps into all aspects of life. And it opens up a lot more doors than if we are showing up in a very firm energy where we're not willing to extend, right? Because if you're not willing to extend, it's really hard to experience anything new. It's really hard to even have room to receive. So that's showing up as your challenge, and your advice in terms of overcoming this challenge or working through it. It's kind of beautiful because it's really, the Two of Swords is about making a decision. So it's recognizing that a decision needs to be made. Perhaps a change needs to be made. Maybe you've got options in front of you that you're contemplating. That could be, it could be houses that you're buying. It could be staying in your job versus a new job opportunity. It could be, a choice in relationship, a choice to start a family. So this is basically saying like there's probably some kind of choice that needs to be made that you haven't felt ready to make, or maybe maybe a point of view that you haven't quite yet been ready to connect with or to integrate. So this is about taking the blindfold off. It's trusting that you may not be able to make this decision very practically or based on what is kind of physically tangible or what you can see in the world around you. It may not be obvious. So this is generally a decision that needs to be made from the heart, right? So we can't look too closely at our external circumstances and expect that the decision is going to make sense, because this is one that really has everything to do with you and your heart and what's important to you. And when you trust yourself and you trust that, there are no wrong decisions, right? No matter what decision you make, you're going to have an experience that's going to help you grow in some way, and that's going to be necessary for, your next step. So it's taking the blindfold off and being willing to recognize that, you don't want to be in no man's land. You don't want to be kind of stuck in this indecision or this avoidance, because you know what they say, not making a choice is making a choice. But the unfortunate part of that is that it's not an empowered choice. So we're not necessarily making that choice because we've taken time to feel our way through it and we're confident that we're ready to move in that direction. It's more just, indifference and avoidance. So this is just about recognizing, what is it? Like, what is it that needs to change? Is it something tangible? Is it a decision that needs to be made on a large scale or a small scale? Because it could be as simple as just changing your perspective. Because swords also has to do with our beliefs, our mental energy. So the way that our perspective influences the decisions that we make, how we show up in life. So it could be even the difference between like a positive outlook and a negative outlook. If you paint everything in a negative outlook, it can be really difficult to make a decision and to feel comfortable about it because you're focusing on the worst case scenario. Whereas what if you were to think about best case scenario, and then you make your decision, based on what feels right in that capacity, right? So it's basically saying like, whatever you think to be true will be. So it's going to serve you to connect to yourself and to trust that this is a decision that you can make internally. It's not anything that somebody can do for you. And it may not, the fork in the road, the path to take may not be obvious just superficially. So there might be a little bit of soul searching that needs to be done. And you'll know how that resonates for you if it does. Before I get you your final oracle, I am going to share with you the 2 channeled messages that came through. So I decided to do a top 2. So the first thing was less of a message and more of like a visual like sensation. So I closed my eyes and it was kind of like a kaleidoscope. So it was like swirling shapes and colors and movement. So yeah, kind of like looking through a kaleidoscope, or, the traditional way that they would illustrate like a psychedelic experience if for someone's like, on LSD or something like that. I've never done that, so I can't speak to it, but it was that kind of energy. And I thought it was kind of interesting. So there was definitely a sense of distortion or illusion, and which kind of made me think that maybe you're not clearly seeing things, or maybe you're not seeing things clearly right now. There's some kind of distortion. There's some kind of like lens that's in between, almost like a filter that could be distorting things. So your perception of things, your understanding of things. So that could have to do with this blindfold, right? So maybe you're counting too heavily on what you're seeing in your external environment, and you're trying to focus on the things that seem stable, and you're making decisions from like a practical point of view instead of paying attention to how things make you feel, even just intuitively. So that could be part of it. But it's also kind of like recognizing that even if there is that distortion, it's like, that's kind of like art. Like we look through a kaleidoscope for fun because it's beautiful, right? So just because something is distorted, right? Just because it may not be valuable to us in a really tangible or empirical kind of way in terms of, seeing something clearly, taking in that data and that information and making a firm decision based on that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value or that it can't be enjoyed. So if you are looking to your external world or your external experiences for information or validation on a decision that you're making or needing to make, if you're waiting for things to kind of fall into place and make sense, you might not be getting that, right? I kind of getting the sense that there might be some distortion in what you're seeing or how you're seeing it. And it's because you're meant to turn inward, right? But it doesn't mean that what you're seeing, in your external environment doesn't mean that it's not valuable or it can't be enjoyed, right? So that's what I will say to you. And the second thing that came through was forgetting to breathe, or like, don't forget to breathe. So I feel like, especially if you're under a lot of stress or pressure, if you're in distress, if you're overwhelmed, if you've got a lot going on and you're just really busy, it's like, don't forget to breathe. Like, your breath is important. Your breath is what connects you to your body and your energy. And doing breath work, taking, just a minute to just stop and focus on your breath, take deep breaths, can be a really calming experience. It can help to calm our nervous system, help us regulate our emotions. So that's something that you can keep returning to, because you might be getting yourself so worked up, or, you might be, dealing with fear or overwhelm or anything that's kind of taking you out of your body, that you're not really focusing on yourself and your basic needs, like your breath. You might be focusing so much on everything outside, and that might be ramping you up. So one way to kind of regulate and bring yourself back down is to focus on your breath. I would say box breathing. So that's, breathing in for a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4. So just doing that a couple of cycles repeatedly can be really, really helpful. So yeah, I think if you're going through anything that's feeling difficult, or there's something that feels bigger than you, or you're feeling triggered, self-sabotaging, when your mind starts to kind of run away and you feel yourself tensing up, it's taking deep breaths, breathing with intention, and remembering that, you're the one in control, right? And because you're in control, you don't need to be rigid. You don't need to force your other people's hands or force your way. You can remain firmly rooted and still be flexible and open. And the more that you can rely on yourself and that calm inner center, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to kind of flow and navigate things more fluidly. Yeah, so that's what I would say for that. And I'm going to get you one final oracle card to tie everything together, just as an extra little bit of advice. Okay. All right, so your oracle card is Mirror, and it says, who or what is triggering you? It was just funny because I was just talking about trigger. Okay, so I'm going to read from the book. I just have to find the page here. Mirror. Okay, who or what is triggering you? The filter of our own experience is how we experience life 90% of the time. Through our own projections, when someone reminds us of unhealed experiences, we get triggered. Often it's an unconscious thing. People and situations can trigger our mirrors to reflect back to us what we believe to be true about life, the universe, and ourselves. Mirrors pointing to our shadow and to our light. Mirrors revealing the parts of us that are yet to be accepted, witnessed, or loved. This card is guiding you to look closely at what experiences or people are currently triggering in you and what they could be mirroring back to you. When have you felt like this before? Could they be opportunities to heal something in you, or are they shining a light on something that longs to be witnessed in you? This goes for the good and the bad. The good, those who we admire and put on a pedestal. If we do not realize that we are attracted to them because we are like them, we will need to cut them down in order to rise to their level. The bad, those we despise, are envious of, and put down. If we do not realize that they trigger something in us, then it is still yet to be healed, and we will remain hurt and wounded ourselves. And then there's an inquiry to dive a little bit deeper on this topic. So it says, who or what is triggering you? What is it in you that they are triggering? And what part of you longs to be witnessed? So I think that's really good, particularly if this does have to do with relationships or, going through something related to this, abundance, stability in the material world, happily ever after kind of stuff. That could have to do with this decision, right? This decision that needs to be made, because once you take this blindfold off and make a decision, you free yourself from all the doubt, all the overanalysis, all the fear, right? Because it's like once you kind of make that decision from a heart-centered place, you can move forward more confidently. But it's also trusting that the experiences that you have, the situations that feel overwhelming, the people that we appreciate or that we don't appreciate, they all are showing something to us, right? Because we experience them through our own lens, right? So if we like them, they're reflecting things that we like. And if we don't realize that that's the case, then we kind of idolize them. And like it said, we put them above us. And then to get to where they are, we have to cut them down, which is not what we want to do. And the people who trigger us with things that, characteristics that we don't like, or they bring out, feelings that are difficult. It's recognizing that just has everything to do with us and our previous experiences. So there are parts of us that are triggered, that are unhealed. And if we are not willing to recognize that somebody triggers us negatively because that part of us is unhealed and we project it onto them, then we're never going to work to heal that thing, right? So it's saying like being triggered is a challenging experience, but if you approach life and everyone in your life as a mirror, take a look at what it is they're reflecting back to you, right? Don't treat them as though they're responsible, but take a look at what it is they're reflecting back to you. What do you think about it? What does it make you feel? When have you felt that before? So there's probably some healing work to be done underlying this that might have a lot to do with how you relate to other people and how you perceive other people, whether like positively or negatively. So yeah, let's see. I'll get you 2 affirmations to end everything off, just because it feels strange not having an affirmation on this table. Okay, perfect. 2 jumped out. So your first affirmation, stillness is the key to success, and I surrender it all. So yeah, I think taking time to check in with yourself and see what you're thinking and feeling, what needs are not being met, what's being reflected back to you, and what that means for you on a personal level. And taking time to sit in stillness to connect to yourself and your heart center, to receive, that inner knowledge, that intuitive kind of understanding of what's best for you, particularly when it comes to making decisions, not simply focusing on your external environment or, data or tangible, practical things to make your decisions. And surrender is kind of a key part of that, of being able to be flexible, right? You have to be able to surrender control and expectations and rigidity in order to be able to be flexible. But that doesn't mean that you're just going to be taking everything in and that you're going to be changed inherently to your core and like lose your values, right? It's trusting that you have the strength and you're rooted firmly enough in who you are to be able to accept and be exposed to and to adjust to other people, other experiences, and other ways of being. And it takes that time to develop that relationship with yourself. So it seems like you guys might be on a little bit of a journey of like healing and self-discovery. So I really like this reading for you, Capricorn. I'm going to leave it here. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube, leave me a comment, let me know how it resonated. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel and make sure that if you head over to my page, you click the bell icon, so that way you'll be notified when new videos are posted. I'm hoping to get back in the swing of recording readings on the regular. So yeah, so that's it. And it's been an absolute pleasure reading for you. I'm so happy to be back here. And I look forward to connecting with you guys and reading for you again in the future. And in the meantime, take care.